welcome to the Galaxy Man Show interview show. So for my guest this week on the show is this incredible director and actor known by the name of Joseph Crawford, who played the role of Darryl in The Tribe, Series 5. And Joseph also played Fake Zoo. So yeah, I'm about to add Joseph into the live now and have a chat with Joseph about his feature film documentary that he's creating, and the crowdfunding for the campaign is up now for the feature film called Dresden 1957. Everyone go support the campaign of Joseph's, and yeah, I'm about to add Joseph into the live now to have a talk with Joseph about his campaign for Dresden 1957. And yeah, everyone get behind the campaign, support the campaign, and yeah, I'm going to add Joseph in right now to the Galaxy Man Show. Here we go.
Hello, Joseph. How's it going?
Hey, Jacob, how are you?
I just want to say, first up, thank you so much for taking the time, Joseph, for joining my show tonight. It's such an incredible pleasure having you on. For people that don't know who you are, if you give like a bit of backstory about yourself, and then we'll dive right into the questions.
Okay, so I'm Joseph Crawford, probably known by most of your audience as Darryl from The Tribe. Really interesting, weird, quirky, sometimes embarrassing, very ambitious, kind of a mess of a character who's also hopefully a little bit endearing as well. He was written in this way of being kind of someone who had a sort of maybe some delusions at first, as a preposterous ego about what he wanted to do, but was really kind of a lonely soul underneath, kind of someone a little different, and so kind of someone who had trouble feeling united with people. But in the end, I think you're supposed to feel like he sort of was absorbed and accepted into the Mallrats, hopefully. So I'm known for playing Darryl. I worked on 2 other shows with Cloud9 prior to The Tribe, so they were familiar with me. So I did some TV, my mid to late teens, and then all throughout I've been interested in film and video production as well, even from my early days. So it's been a long journey, but I've worked on worn lots of different hats in the industry, mainly pursuing a more serious career in film and television editing at the moment. But also do some stuff on the producing side. And people are always telling me, oh, maybe you should, try some acting again, throw your hat in the ring again to do that. And, I may do that. But the most likely thing I might try and do is some voice acting, which is probably an arena I feel a little more confident with. But I'll never say no to getting back into the acting scene. And I have recently relocated back to Toronto. So as part of setting myself up here, it's not off the cards to also look at agencies, and I have spoken to some people already. So, but that would be largely just for fun at this point, and not maybe a serious career path. Yeah.
So we'll dive right into the questions now, Joseph. So you are actually creating your very own feature film history event. That's a Canadian history, true history event from Canadian,
Yes.
about a tragedy event called Dresden 1957. What can you tell people about Dresden 1957 and about this crowdfunding campaign?
Yeah. So it's amazing to be working on such like a Canadian piece of history after having wanted to move back to Canada for so long, and diving right into an area that I didn't know about, but was actually the worst workplace tragedy of its time in Ontario, which is, a large province. And the reason I got connected to this is I came back to Canada after having wanted to move back for some time, and I was making many different film connections. And one of the connections I followed up that was an unlikely connection, but someone who I always had good memories of, was a former history teacher who actually gave me my very first video project at school. This would be a project that I did prior to joining The Tribe. And it turned into something I took to a local student film festival and won some prizes for, which was like my early bit of encouragement on the filmmaking side. Now, the man who gave me that project was Eric Philpott, and he's since worked on the tech sector side of the industry, but he's also directed theater before. So he has a wonderful sort of storytelling background. But I met with him and he had a few projects to pitch and was excited by the work that I'd done, which was, you know, bits and pieces of creative, but I'd done a lot of commercial work in-house for companies and stuff like that, making commercial video content. But I sort of had all this sort of like, like well-rounded set of skills, you know, that was perfect for kind of helping shepherd a low-budget documentary project and try to make it something better and give it a real good chance. So that's what we did. Now, the key piece of information here is Eric's father is the site engineer involved in the epicenter of the story. So that's why it takes it to another level. It's a bit more of a personal connection. And he actually found the diary just a few years prior to us making this, which reveals a whole bunch of notes on exactly what happened. So just to give you the rundown, it was a cave-in that occurred at a building site where 6 immigrant workers, Dutch immigrant workers, were killed. And the matter was never really resolved in that no one was really held accountable for it. And this meant that it sort of was a big news in the newspapers at the time, even outside the country and in the US. And then after the initial wave of news died down, there really wasn't much reporting on it. And as a result, the story got buried, and the people and the families in this small town were left to kind of grieve in a way where they didn't feel like they could express much. A lot of people kept the memories bottled up, and people didn't talk about it. So if the film functions on a few different levels, it functions on a sort of a general like a tragedy accident level. But it's also an exploration of Canadian history at that town, small town. It's sort of this town stands in for what a lot of small town experiences would be like. And we want to really bring that to life through some more cinematic style like recreations, you know, so we'll be doing some more ambitious stuff with it. And then the third interesting thing about it is like, what was the social climate at the time? Did the attitudes towards immigrant workers mean that maybe they were considered more expendable? And we're kind of taking a look into that. And so it's interesting from a workplace safety point of view, we've got people interested in that. And our local national news network, CBC, has also shown interest and given us airtime to, you know, talk about it. So a little corner of history that hasn't been talked about, and that's why I felt excited to bring it to life. But also it's to do with Eric. I'm more interested in narrative filmmaking myself, and it's not that I don't like documentaries, but when I work on a documentary, I want it to really have a chance to be very filmic, and I know Eric has those sensibilities too. So we want to do everything we can to make it feel cinematic, and yeah, give it all those extra touches it needs to bring it to life, you know. So it's not just people talking and then you cut to archival footage and back to talking heads, and making it a lot more than that. And that's fun. Yeah.
So how can people get behind the campaign that's up and running now?
Right. Well, there is a link that I've it's hard to publish these things on Instagram. It's on my Facebook page. And that is at a platform called seedandspark.com. And so if you go to seedandspark.com/fund/Dresden-1957, so /fund/Dresden-1957, you'll find it. But maybe an easier way to find it is just to go to Dresden1957.com. You can scroll down, you can click support the project. Everything really adds up in this case. I know that's something people say a lot, but we have like just a finite number of weeks to hit a certain target. And that will make all the difference between whether we can go ahead and actually complete principal photography, which it definitely looks like we can, but we need all the help we can get. So even if it's just that you can throw $5 our way, that means everything, you know? And do take a look at the project, even if all you can do is help share it, help spread the word. Anybody has Canadian roots or knows the Ontario or knows anything about Ontario, anyone concerned about workplace safety. And for any of our Dutch viewers of the tribe out there, I know there's definitely some, you know, they might have an interest in seeing what's going on with their, you know, with the Dutch immigrants and of the time. Yeah. So
So onto onto my very next
yeah,
question for you, Joseph. As you mentioned, you're like well known from the
yes,
tribe as Darryl, an iconic and amazing character, by the way.
yeah.
And I have to say, your performance as Darryl was fantastic, and I commend you so much on your performance as Darryl. What was it like actually getting to like being this hit and like New Zealand series for the tribe?
Well, that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of a big story. First of all, thanks for that compliment. I never think of my performance as Darryl as for me, it's an awkward phase of life, and it was an awkwardly written character for me, and always look at it with such a critical eye and think of you know, all the things that are cringy to me about it. But it was me working with what I had at the time and with what I knew about the character at the time, and trying to bring it to life. So we're always a very harsh critic of ourselves. But I think luckily enough, like the things that appear awkward to me, I know that there's still supposed to be some awkwardness to his character there. But yeah, to answer your question, I was um, I was living in New Zealand at the time. No, I wasn't living in New Zealand at the time. I was living in New Zealand when I got the first two shows from Cloud9. So to just um, take you up to the point where I got cast, I had two shows behind me on with Cloud9 already, and those were sort of in my kind of mid-teens. And I was living in New Zealand, and I got this incredible run after getting an agent of like getting three shows in quick succession. Um, the first was Mirror Mirror 2, which is a Gibson Group production. I don't know if you got that worldwide or not. It was mainly an Australian, New Zealand thing. And it was about kids traveling back in time through a portal in a mirror in an old mansion. And that was fun. So I got to be a guest lead on an episode there, a memorable episode where I was a bratty American tourist kid that sort of gets caught up in all that. That was my very first TV role. And then I did Legend of William Tell. If you're aware of any of the Cloud9
Yes.
series, I'm in The Hidden Valley. That's probably my favorite piece of acting work in terms of just like the one I had the most fun on, and the one that I actually like some of my work in. And then after that, I did A Twist in the Tail with William Shatner. And that was also a very cool role to get. Then I took a break from TV acting for a while and was focusing on other things. I ended up back in Canada, long story short, and I was doing a combination of hospitality work and auditioning, largely for commercials downtown Toronto. And it was pretty bleak. I got a TV show that I did out in Montreal. I had a quick stint on MTV's Undressed. If you're aware of that one at all,
I've
it's sort
heard
of
of it.
like a bit of a
Yeah.
yeah. It was like a bit of a take on teen sex, and like it was like American Pie with a little bit more of a serious kind of educational tone and some soap opera elements, made for teens with a little bit of like I guess sex education thrown in. Yeah. And yeah, that was fun. But I was largely feeling a little depressed, like life wasn't moving forward at that point, or maybe it was the time of life I was being kind of impatient with things. Um, my family also had a good connection with Ray Thompson, the producer of The Tribe, and I had made a very good kind of impression on him the first few times around. Um, my mom ended up speaking to Ray once and catching up with him, and he was at the time just looking to cast Darryl. And Ray Thompson sort of sometimes makes fairly kind of quick decisions on things, and he immediately reviewed the footage of other shows I've done for them, looked at my picture, and decided he actually wanted to offer me the role. So I remember you mentioning with some of the questions you might be asking about the audition process. There was no audition process for the tribe. Yeah.
Okay.
So I basically I basically get a call from Ray offering me the role, and uh, my family was over there already living there, and so it was, hard to say, something difficult to say no to, and so I thought that I would be living in New Zealand for a year. It was about a 5 month shoot there, and I thought maybe I'll stick it out a year, but of course it turned into a whole thing for me, and I ended up almost living 2 decades in New Zealand before coming back here. So yeah.
So on to my very next question for you. So what was like your most favorite memorable favorite moment or scene to shoot of like for Darryl and wife in the Tribe series?
I for some reason, so there's a lot of interesting fun moments, like when we shot in those tunnels, those long corridors that you see.
Yes.
That's at a location called Wrights Hill, and those are actually real war tunnels that go underground. Those were always fun to shoot in and run through, and you really feel it because you really are underground. I think some of the sound engineers from Lord of the Rings went down there to actually replay sound effects on speakers so that they could echo throughout the chamber, because you really hear those echoes. So that's a fun location. But honestly, from a character point of view, I really enjoyed Darryl's whole episode where they go to the abandoned library and he makes this confession on camera. He ends up making this confession on camera that he's not Zoot. And I just really enjoyed that as from a character moment. I felt like I was drawing on a little bit more of the real Darryl at that point, as opposed to all of these things he was trying to be, And so that was nice. And there's all sorts of moments that were fun to shoot. I really enjoyed working out in the Liberty Village set, with especially with Matt Robinson, who we became quite close while we were filming the series, because we were both newcomers into the series, and so we kind of had that bond, and we were both kind of like new to Wellington, New Zealand, or I was newly returned to Wellington, New Zealand, and so that we always, and because we had a lot of scenes together, we ran lines. Really enjoyed working with Meryl Cassie as Ebony, and Kaylin Paris. Also had a lot of fun working with him, and he was, I had some of my first scenes with him, the interactions with Mega. That was a hell of a lot of fun. Oh, I gotta say, it was pretty fun shooting the rooftop scene. As
Yes.
I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember. Yeah,
I remember.
I got to
Yeah.
channel a little bit of death metal or something there,
Okay.
and as I yelled at the crowd, we didn't get as big a crowd as we wanted to. I don't know, budgetary restraints, but it was still fun to do, and
What
do
was it like?
yeah.
Like, what was it like actually dressing up in like the whole Zoot get up and like like the whole makeup and everything?
That was the first costume they put me in.
Okay.
Right. So, and I was only just realizing that, I was supposed to sort of resemble Danny James and stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
had to kind of quickly look at what he was doing with the character. But also I wanted it to feel like Darryl was kind of trying to do this, and it wasn't perfect in that way. And I wanted enough of Darryl to come through. Yeah, it was really good. The contact lenses
Yes.
were quite uncomfortable, but no, I enjoyed wearing it, and I remember the kids were really intimidated by me when I first showed up. So it's I've forgotten her name, who plays Mouse.
Mouse and Sammy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mouse and Sam. So what's the actress's name? Help me out here. I've just temporarily forgotten. Mouse. Anyway, she was
Jack something? Jacqueline?
Jacinta.
Or no?
Jacinta.
Jacinta. There you go.
Jacinta. Yeah, Jacinta. So she was absolutely freaked out, totally freaked out of me on the first day. This was probably one of my first days filming, and I had to. It's a scene where Darryl as Zoot kind of comes across them and kind of freaks them out a little bit. And I, it probably was unnecessarily, but I decided on the day that I wasn't going to talk and interact with her much, just so she'd be extra freaked out. So, there was no kind of rapport building on the day or just friendly chat. I just came in as the character, and she did genuinely let out a shriek, I remember. So that was fun.
I have to say, who would like be your all-time favorite cast member from season 5 that you remember working with and why?
So I've said Matt Robinson. Matt Robinson still remains my first choice, just because he was an all-around great guy, wonderful collaborator to deal with, interested in the real craft of the acting. So we would like have a lot of fun rehearsing scenes. But like I said, Meryl Cassie also really a lot of fun to hang out with. Always fun and always had energy on set. I'd worked with Beth before on William Tell. Yeah, she's Princess Vara there. So there's some memories there, and I'd also worked with Tonia Preble because we worked together on Mirror Mirror. So I had those two cast members, but we didn't have a lot of close scenes together. So it wasn't that kind of thing. But I did enjoy hanging out with them on set when I could. I think Tom Hearn was really great to work with, actually. He always brought a hell of a lot of energy to set. He's a kind of a larger than life personality, especially at that time, and always had funny things to say. And for in terms of sheer laughter and humor, gotta say Kalen as Mega. He's hilarious. Yeah, they had some serious hijinks going on, and they would sometimes actively try and undermine or disrupt your performance. I remember them, I won't get into detail, but I remember them whispering absolutely obscene things in each other's ear before they had to start the scene, or when you hit this mark, think of this, to completely try and psych out the people. But it was at that stage, these guys, some of them had been on this show for 5 years. So there was a really relaxed, playful nature, family. That's what it felt like. Family. Yeah.
What was like the most ridiculous blooper scene or blooper reel that you can remember of Darryl's or any other character,
Yeah.
and why?
Well, um, there was a few different ones that I remember. So there's quite a few antics, like I mentioned before, where people were just trying to psych each other out. Quite a lot of people fluffing the same line over and over again that I remember. For me, there was one epic fail, which is,
Okay.
I don't know, you might have to help me out. This episode where there's an army of us, like we're rushing forward as an army in series 5. I don't know if you can recall what's going on there and help me out here.
I think it was I think it was like the very last two
Yeah.
maybe episodes. Yeah. When you like were heading to
Yeah.
Mega's base.
I'm carrying a flag. I've got a flag
Yeah.
going on, right? So I epically missed my cue. So we've got our core cast,
Okay.
and we've got our secondary guest cast, and we've got our extras behind us. And Danny James, who is none other than Danny James, Zoot, is working for Cloud9 as an AD. Right. They have a way of taking care of people who also have an interest in filmmaking. And Danny didn't have a lot of scenes to shoot series 5, so he was also working on the crew. So it was Danny's job to sort of call everyone forward and say go. And on this occasion, I must have been in an absolute complete dream, because everyone else heard the cue and rushed forward, and I didn't take the hint somehow. I was just standing there with my flag, and there's about 2 or 3 lines of people just rushing on forward. And Danny gave me a hard time for that. He said something to the effect of like, "Are your ears painted on?" or something like that. He was that kind of character. Yeah. But okay, so that's a fail. I remember. Okay, there was well, there was one time where we kept trying to do the scene and kept trying to do the scene, and I kept messing up the line. It was something like I was talking about. I was in the Liberty Saloon and saying. Talking to is it Java's sister? Is it Siva?
Siva. Yeah.
Siva? Yeah.
Monique. Yeah.
So I was Monique, yeah. So we were having fun doing the scene with Monique, but I could not get the line. I said I kept saying that I think the line is that's not what girls are for, or but I kept saying that's not what girls are there for. It's supposed to be Darryl doing some sort of cheesy misogynistic sort of thing. And she and so I kept saying I kept screwing up the line. They actually kept the line the way that I screwed it up in the edit. But the reason we had to leave the scene behind was a huge piece of like the window dressing sort of fell down.
Yeah.
And at that point, because the tribe is fast turnaround television, and it's not like we can always stop and wait half an hour for them to get that piece of lighting right. It was like, you know, I got 3 goes at the scene, didn't deliver the line properly. The thing fell down, and they're like, well, moving on. You know? So this is how it was sometimes. Yeah, I can remember all sorts of funny bloopers, but not in detail. Yeah, there was stunt. Anytime I had to do a stunt was fun, right? So
What was
um,
your like most favorite stunt?
so like you know that there's this scene where Siva actually absolutely takes me down. Um,
Yes.
do you remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was fun because we kind of like have a stunt coordinator, and we rehearsed that, how she would flip me over and how she would slam me down on the ground. And yeah, I remember there's a few different shots of that, and then there's a shot down below where sort of my face comes down and hits the floor. But we were able to do that really fast at the time. And the way you do that is you rehearse with the stunt coordinator, just the 2 people involved. So sometimes the rest of the cast in the scene haven't seen what you're going to do yet. So the first time you rehearse it or go in for your proper take, and you actually go through with it, sometimes they're quite wowed by what you know, they're not even aware that you've had the training, right? So all of a sudden, like, you know, and you know, you can see the surprise on their faces. So that's always fun. And then there's one time I think where I get thrown out of the saloon, and there's a shot where I've got to like land on the pavement, and they were running out of time, and they didn't have a crash mat or anything for me to land on and stuff like that, and they needed to get some kind of shot. And I was like, you know, I think I could just land on the pavement. You know, I think I'll just throw myself down. And that's what I did. So that shot is me just trying to throw myself on the pavement as hard as I could. Um, Minor injuries.
What was it actually like getting to work with like Monique, Megan, and also like Meryl Cassie, like the 3 incredible sisters?
Meryl's awesome. Yeah, she's got an like I said, she's so much fun. She's got amazing energy. She always had jokes and funny things to say. She's always playing games on set. I remember we'd play this game where like you had a you know like everyone was you know like classic actor, you know, couldn't get enough of it really, you know, and we'd do like theater games while we were sitting around, and like we'd do the changing channel game where someone would have a you know, a fake remote in front of them, and they would change the channel, and they would act like they were the next channel, the next channel, the next channel. So lots of goofing off and playing like that. And yeah. So I didn't work with the other 2 sisters a lot, apart from
Yeah.
Siva during that scene. So most of my memories are with Meryl, and yeah, she was a lot of fun. And of course, their mother does their braids, so they always had incredible hair. Yeah.
So on to my very next question for you.
Mm.
So like what made you decide as a person and like especially as an actor to get into to the whole like acting scene in the first place?
I just had it. I just had an abundant imagination from such a young age that these things made such a huge impression on me. So the story is that my parents took me to a show, some sort of onstage Winnie the Pooh show, when I was like 3 years old, and I was so just that was my first taste of anything theatrical. And so the experience left such an impression on me. Apparently, I did some version of that play at home, like almost every day for a year. That's what I'm told, reciting all the things. So I just had I was just in complete awe by this whole idea of creating another world, you know, and being able to create another world out of nothing in front of you. And then as I grew up, all the things that went along with that. So really, like, my interest in acting was, I guess, not just that you can sort of escape yourself or take a vacation from yourself, but it's like the act of what it's like to be in other people's shoes, and to be instantly transported to other worlds, and to, you know, I think I was quite good early on in life at kind of shutting the world out and kind of just letting my imagination take over. And so I kind of used that. It became harder for me as I grew up and got more self-conscious. But my interest in creating other worlds and other realities, and examining things from a storytelling point of view, all of that also got channeled into my like filmmaking interests and video production interests. So they always were hand in hand. Yeah.
So on to your next question about like acting. Like, what does acting and performing like mean to you? Like, especially as a person, especially as an actor, and like now producer, with this film for Dresden 1957. Like, what does that? What does this whole like? What does performance and everything mean to you?
Well, like you said, it's a way of examining what it's like to be in someone else's shoes, what it's like to look through their eyes. And I think anytime we can do that is really very, very valuable in this day and age, because we live in a culture that's about sort of celebrating your individual identity very strongly and having all of these things that you believe in and what you stand behind. And sometimes it's so easy for us to talk past each other and just talk our talking points and our perspective and be in an echo chamber where we just have other people who immediately agree with us because that's more convenient, rather than really examine what it's like. And we're also very quick to like demonize somebody else. So you're terrible for that, or you're just this, or you're just that. And acting and storytelling gives you a little bit of that like pliability, elasticity of mind to sort of like keep practicing imagining what it's truly like to be in someone else's head, because we're all vastly different universes, if you really think about it. And so I like that about creativity is it does two things, right? It shows you how different we all are, how many different lives you could lead, how vast the human experience is, but also in doing that, you find all those shared connections, right? You find all those things that do resonate between people. And so I like that. And I like the opportunity to experiment with playing very different extreme characters with different points of view. People that are very certain about what they want, people that are very uncertain and maybe broken, or have lost their way and have lost their confidence. And so Darryl was actually a really interesting blend, especially the way they wrote them, because we don't get to see all the scenes at once. I don't know if many people know this, but we do them generally in blocks of 7 scripts. And I got to see a little bit ahead because so Darryl doesn't have as much screen time in the latter half of the series. I had an interest in filmmaking, and they had me work in the script department as a script editor. Something's happened, and I've been the thumbs up. I don't know how you turn that off these days, but yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, I really love that opportunity of exploring different points of view, and I think we really need that in the world. And Darryl also has these contrasts of being very, very certain of himself and very deluded, and then also very uncertain. And I think that that's an interesting mirror of a lot of what is the human experience as well. He's just kind of a very raw form of it, Yeah.
Who would you say like is the most challenging character that you've performed in like say the Tribe or like theater series, like so on and so forth?
Yeah. Well, so Darryl would be one of them only because he seemed to be written a little differently each episode. And that was because I think, well, the character was a very complex character, described as one thing, but also the other thing, and could have gone in lots of different directions. There's multiple writers on the Tribe, and maybe different writers wanted to accentuate different things that they saw in the character description. But also, he genuinely was just like a complex character. He was, you weren't sure if you really liked him, but then there was a story of him sort of being redeemed and feeling more comfortable with himself and being more accepted by others. So that was challenging because I was also dealing with the awkwardness inside myself, maybe my own social awkwardness at the time, maybe my awkwardness as an actor at the time. And so I could use some of that, but I also felt uncertain about it. And my mind changed over time about how I wanted to play the character. And so some of that you can see, and probably some of it works for Darryl and some of it maybe doesn't. So tough character that way. In terms of like dramatic challenges. I played Faust on stage for the Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, and got to go to all sorts of extremes there. Really, really enjoyed it. But that performance was one that I gave my all to. Yeah, and this was on stage before the tribe. Yeah.
So on to my very next
Yeah.
question. So if you could like be in any TV or movie franchise, like what TV or movie franchise would it be and why? And if you could play any character in that TV or movie franchise, what would it be and why?
Um, that's difficult because I always, almost all the time, I think that like they nail the casting, and who they've arrived and decided on is a good choice. I remember family members saying to me, because I arrived back in New Zealand late, and there was a whole bunch of things going on in my life, and I was arrived in New Zealand just on the tail end of the Lord of the Rings production. Those books were like absolutely part of my imagination growing up. I remember my dad reading me The Hobbit on 7 audio cassettes, because he was away a lot, and that was sort of a way for me to get into Tolkien, and then of course got read Lord of the Rings later. So would have loved to be part of that. I had family members say to me, "Oh, in another life, you could have been a Hobbit or been Frodo or something like that." But like I said, you look at their casting, and their casting was like absolutely impeccable. So I can't really think of anything in terms of something that hasn't been made. Well, it has been made. I also love that Narnia series. I grew up with the Narnia series, so anything to do with the nostalgia of childhood, I would love to be a part of. But it's so these days it's so easy for them to get it wrong and not honor really like how wonderful the source material was. So I think what's her name, the director of Barbie, has been tasked with putting Narnia on Netflix. So we'll see where she goes with that. I just hope they preserve the real wonder and imagination of the books and have it separate from trying to do sort of clever pop cultural references, because sometimes that can take away from just the raw, beauty that was written and everything like that. But yeah, I'd love to be part of anything Narnia.
I
That'd
don't
be amazing.
I don't know if you remember an old series called Legend of the Seeker back in the day.
Okay, so I read, yeah, I remember those books a lot because they were a part of my early teen obsession with reading. Like they just everyone told me to read the books, and I ended up reading Wizard's First Rule, I think when I was about 12 or 13, on a camper trip with my family across Canada before we left the country. So instead of looking at beautiful mountains and scenery outside, I always had my head buried in this book. And of course, there's all sorts of exciting adult themes going on in that book.
Yes.
Side by side with just rich fantasy stuff. And yeah, interesting writer. He doesn't. He claims he doesn't believe in world building, yet he paints such a rich tapestry. So, yeah, I always Terry Goodkin's kind of fascinating to me. I kind of dropped off after a while, but I read some key books in the series, maybe 4 or 5 books actually, and really enjoyed that. And I feel they didn't quite do it justice with the TV series, but it was made in New Zealand. A lot of similar crew to say, the Hercules, Xena, the Tribe. A lot of those crew members sort of work on the same shows. I think that was almost all done up in Auckland, so I didn't get to be around it. But I was very excited when they were making it, and unfortunately, I think they could have gone much further with it. Yeah, yeah.
So if you could like work with any top 3 actors in the acting industry, who would they be and why?
Okay, so I think of him as an actor. Not everybody thinks of him as an actor. Some people think of him as more of a comedian. He's also now a philosopher, painter, artist. He's just an extraordinary person. He's a Canadian. He started his comedy career at Yuck Yucks here in Toronto. Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, fascinating individual on so many different levels. He would be my top choice. I'm not thinking so much of people who've historical figures. Like I didn't think about that much, but if anyone knows, there's another. Another favorite of mine is Joaquin Phoenix. the work he does every time is just absolutely astounding. He'd be very intense to work with, but that's the kind of intensity that would it'd be exciting for me. Phil Hoffman, and when another incredible actor. I just wish he was still here today. So don't know if that counts. And for female actress, I think Kate Blanchett is just incredible. Everything she touches. So yeah. Jim Carrey.
So
Yes, I see the comments.
Jim Carrey's amazing. Oh,
Yeah.
the way
You
Jim
can't-
Carrey does all his like
Yeah.
roles and stuff, like Jim Carrey, fantastic, just all time fantastic actor, and just that would be a.
I don't know how he
oh,
does it. I don't know
No.
how he does it. And it was probably in the back of my mind during some just a few Darryl moments. Might have been a little Carey creeping
Jim
in
Carrey?
there. Yeah. Because he's in my mind. Yeah, he's just an amazing, phenomenal talent. I don't know where it comes from, but I remember that kind of energy, not comparing myself to him at all, but that kind of energy, manic kind of energy being in me as a young performer, wanting to like swing from all these extremes and like manipulating my voice to do different things. And,
Yes.
I would read all sorts of different characters to cassette tapes and things like that. And so Jim Carrey was just like the absolute embodiment of all of that craziness that I loved. And then to see him go on this incredible,
by the way,
yeah,
you would actually be a fantastic mask choice. Jim Carrey,
Right.
like Joseph. I reckon Joseph. If anyone in the comments, I reckon Joseph would be a good mask. Let me know in the
it
comments.
takes practice.
Yeah, it does take
importing your
practice.
face.
Mhm.
Yeah. And maybe I've lost a little bit of that over the years, but I think I'm willing to try. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on to my very next question for you, Joseph. So, like, looking back over your time in the career of acting, producing, and all that, like, what advice would you give to your younger self, like, looking back over your
Yeah.
time? And if you could go to any decade in time,
Mm.
what decade would it be and why?
Well, I'll answer the last one first. I'll probably go to the 70s, late 60s, 70s, because I feel like the overall storytelling and what the level of daring and originality that was accepted in the pop culture was really, really exciting. And the level of originality people were able to just exhibit within themselves. It was a time when all of these sort of social constructs were opening up, and you could be much more thoughtful and much more kind of dare to be more artistic, avant-garde about stuff. And it was still before this age we have now, which is like where everything you have to make has to instantly be like something else. What is it you're making? Oh, we're just making another one of those. It was like, no, they were still testing the bounds of storytelling. So it was a really interesting time. And also they didn't have a lot of money to make stuff back then. The budgets were constraints, but good stuff was still being financed. So I think like being an actor and artist in that time could have been very interesting. Yeah. And in terms of remind me of your first part of your question again.
If you could give like your younger self advice, like what advice would it be for your younger self?
So the real answer for that, which I won't put you through, would be like an hour-long thing. I have a lot of things to say to my younger self.
Okay.
But I guess distilling it would be don't take yourself too seriously for a start. It's very easy to do that when you're excited and wrapped up in pursuing the kinds of things that I was interested in. And when you're surrounded by, especially as an actor, just people who are, I guess, supporting or keeping this vision of you alive, where you feel like you're of great importance, and it's very important not to feed off that. Anytime I was, and that goes hand in hand with like trying to be perfect, so the perfectionism is really strong in me, and I really, really think that it undermines a lot of things that I could really do, because many times when I was a young person, very young, like before like under the age of 10, I was completely free and unfiltered. And like there was maybe problems with that too, but a lot of my real raw creativity was alive. And so funnily enough, like not taking yourself so seriously is also like also giving permission and enjoying the imperfect parts of yourself, and then maybe allowing the creativity to your genuine creativity to come through stronger. Felt I was trying to control myself too much, and I was probably being heavy-handed with the things that I was interested in making them too serious, and thus kind of like constraining myself. So I could see that. So basically, don't take yourself too seriously. Be more aware of how you appear to others. I'm not sure if I could have done that at the time. I'm a little bit more socially refined than I could have than I was before. So it's like to be more aware of how others see you, but then at the same time, just enjoy being yourself and not worry about what others think. So there's this funny balance in life that I'm still trying to get, which is like to have some more awareness of how others see you, but don't let that impact any living of who you really are. And that's a long road. Yeah.
What can you like? What advice can you give to like upcoming actors or producers that want to start out in like the acting or producing industry?
Um, there's a huge amount of social collaboration to it that is sometimes for me it was more than I really realized. So it's not enough to have just an incredible vision, or it's not enough just to have an incredible idea, and it's not enough to be able to imagine things vividly for yourself. These are just the things that I had to learn the hard way. So much of it is about actually how you collaborate with others, digest information, come in with new ideas at the appropriate time, go after contacts at the right time and in the right way, so you don't want to just bombard everybody with things. You want to pick the right moments to come in with new ideas. And also um, take yourself to task and actually write things in a more concrete way, because it's very easy to get caught up in the feeling of that you understand your idea internally, but bridging it and talking about it with others is so important. And so I guess advice for going into these things as a career is be prepared to do other work and other side jobs alongside it, because there's a long stretch of time, and it can even come in waves where you have good income and you have means, and other times where you have to sacrifice a lot of time and a lot of your own money to get something going. And you have to have very strong self belief in what you're doing. You have to have quite thick skin, because waiting for enough people around you to go, oh no, yeah, that's a good idea, I can see that really going somewhere, you oftentimes won't have that at all, and people won't be able to see what it is that you've got in mind until it reaches a certain stage. So absolutely believe in what you're doing, but always have those like real reality checks into the right time to present an idea to someone, and what you would need to do to work yourself into the position where they're going to really listen. So it's a long road. It's not easy. It's Everyone should remember that it's basically like a lottery, those people where something miraculous happens overnight, does happen, but that's like winning the lottery. And just because you didn't win the lottery doesn't mean that your ideas are any less valuable. It's just like some things are just the right thing that society, pop culture, the producers in power are looking for at that time. It doesn't mean it's not going to be amazing at another time or in another way, you know. And it's a long road. Like for me, it's been a long road, just dealing with myself first before being ready to do some of the things I wanted to do in life. Yeah, yeah,
I have to actually say my friend Rain, Meryl Cassie actually has a Instagram group that she's created, a tribal family of
yeah.
sorts. And we've started out at like a tribal group family and
Nice,
things, and yeah, it's been really amazing. Like all the people that I've met so far has been so incredible. And my
nice.
good friend Rain from Mississippi, he actually wanted to say he actually with Darryl's hairstyle, it actually inspired him to actually
Which one?
have his own hairstyle.
Yeah.
The spike
Ah,
hairstyle.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's a funny story about that. Yeah. Mm.
If you could say your funny story, I would love to hear that funny
Well,
story, please.
Well, that was just sprang on me at the last moment. They were like, "Oh, by the way, we're
Okay.
changing your hair, and Daryl's going with the Demon Dogs." You know.
Okay.
And normally I had good previews into things because I could read the scripts ahead because I worked through the script department, so I got to read a little further than the actors would, which they were always trying to leech information out from me. Especially Matt tried many different times to get me to to leak some things out. And so, yeah, I didn't get to see, usually I got to see things and prepare for things, but this was like a decision that probably happened really fast or something like that. I don't know how it went down. And there wasn't a lot of like scenes explaining it. So, I remember they dyed my hair. I had my ear pierced for that transition. So I had a ring here. I still got the still got the hole. I need to test out whether it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna take anything at this point. I probably need to re-pierce it. But yeah, that hairstyle was fun. I remember that some of the cast looked at me completely differently when I walked through the door with the black hair, and then them basically gluing it up like that. That was great. There was one extra scene that I was supposed to be in with my old look, right? Because we shoot these things out of order. And so I'm in the background with some beanie that they've given me to just put on my head. Yeah. So, but then I was like, everyone was like, what is going on? There's no scene explaining Daryl's change. I think there's like one throwaway line somewhere about him being in the Demon Dogs. I knew that was the backstory. And obviously I think they addressed it in the books or something. But it was just so funny. People had no clue what was happening.
If Darryl could be in a different tribe, except for instead of the Morats, if Darryl could be in a different tribe, what other tribe would Darryl want to be in, and why? And if the tribe could come back as a series of a reboot sorts of thing, what would you want to see from a reboot of the tribe?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Yeah. Okay, so Darryl. So there's the other tribes I know of don't necessarily fit Darryl's style. Darryl's a real showman, right? So I guess the Technos put on a good show. So I guess if he could be respected in the Technos, that might be his best play, right? The Mallrats, they're a bit more about heart and personal connections and stuff like that. And Darryl's still trying to get comfy with that kind of thing. But I think that that's the best place for him to be. I don't know if he would know what to do with himself, in the what's the environmentalist nature tribe that Mouse
Eco
goes
tribe?
The ecos, yeah. I don't really see Darryl coping with that immediately, but maybe that would be good for him. I don't know. You might have to help me out here. I'm not familiar with some of the smaller tribes.
It was Tribe Circus. I don't know if you remember the Tribe Circus.
Circus. Okay. Now that sounds perfect. No, I should know about that. Did they make an appearance in Series 5?
Season 1, they made an appearance.
Okay.
Top Hat. It was
Right.
Top Hat.
Is it what's his name? CK or CJ?
Yes. Yep.
CJ in that? Yeah.
But yeah, I'll tell you what, Tribe Circus, I would say, for me, Tribe Circus would be a really cool tribe to be in.
They should have brought it back just for Darryl.
Oh.
They should have brought it back. Just one episode. Just bring them back and take Darryl away. So
take Darryl away.
Yeah.
That rap, I have to say, that rapping
Casey, I'm so sorry. Casey, I know. I know that. Yeah.
Good old Harry boy, man.
Yeah.
Love him
to I met her. I never worked with him, but I did meet him. Yeah. And another guy I never worked with met is who plays James Napier's brother in the Technos.
Oh, Ved?
Ved, yeah. I've seen him around. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it like actually getting to work with James Napier?
Yeah, they were very, very cool. we'd go to movies together, we'd hang out outside, we'd go to play pool together, we'd go, have drinks together, we'd go to movies together, house parties together. So plenty of time to talk and chat about things. James Napier was always like really actually quite more of a serious guy, offset. And you could see that he had real ambition, and when we watched movies, he was really thinking about that stuff. Wasn't surprised that when he went into directing, he was always very thoughtful, thinking about the creative stuff,
Yeah.
very interested in filmmaking. I said I would like to reconnect with Tom Hearn at the right time, either just as a reconnection or maybe, I'll have something to collaborate with. But I think that what he's done with his career is amazing. And he has the, social charisma to maintain all of these wonderful connections and to really inspire people to to do to do work and to join projects and to make financial contributions. I mean, there's a lot of hustling when it comes to being a producer and pulling strings, and but you also have to have like incredibly smart knowledge of filmmaking and like what to spend money on and what not to spend money on, and how to really and knowledge of the film landscape. So he's really done an amazing transition from actor into producer, and he's one of New Zealand's top producers now. Basically, incredible. So would love to chat to him again sometime. And then you asked me something else after that, I believe.
About the reboot, if you like the
Oh,
try to
yeah.
get like a reboot.
Yeah, so we thought, so there was a chance that Series 5 wasn't going to be the end. There was only a slim chance. We thought maybe we'd get another one. It was a kind of, for a while, being talked about. And especially I got exposed to it, like the front lines of it, working in the script department, because all of these decisions were being made and allowances were being made for different things to happen. But it was basically like the ship to the other, the ship taking the Mallrats to another world. Was a chance to kind of like bookend the series, but also leave the door open for something entirely new to happen, either with new characters or with the characters that have gotten on the boat. So it was a really, I guess, smart way of ending the story, but also leaving it open. And I wasn't even sure if I was going to make the ship for the longest time. I think I only found out when that last block came in, I found out I was on the boat. I was just, Darryl makes it. Yeah.
Where do you reckon the Mallrats went on that ship?
I don't know. So I mean that ship is leaving Wellington, New Zealand harbor.
Yeah.
So, but if you don't take it literally, and I mean, it's supposed to be anywhere. It really could be a whole other continent, right? So maybe if they're set in some North American type of place, maybe they made it all the way to a European continent or something like that. Maybe they went something. Maybe they ended up somewhere very different, like a tropical climate type of place. They could have ended up somewhere deserted and had to start from scratch in a more like natural environment that didn't have all those urban things, available to them. Like it really could have gone in any direction. But I hope they made it. Yeah.
Yes.
They had supplies, they had everything going. So yes, it's a small boat, but yeah, I hope they made it. And I guess the books confirm that, if you take the books as canon, they confirm that they did make it. And I haven't read those books, so you'll have to maybe help me out there. But I did just find out from a fan, I believe, commenting on a YouTube video that Darryl had died. That's how I found. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I actually have to say, what the tribe never did, like with that whole boat thing, like I have to say, the thing that would have been cool to see with the whole boat, and like if it had got a new season, like seeing a pirate group actually try and take over the boat, and you guys like the Mallrats and stuff, like a tribe pirate group. That would have been something
because they
cool
would
to
be
see.
out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if this whole if the whole thing that affected that set up the tribe was a worldwide pandemic, and all the adults were wiped out, there would be clusters of these youth tribes everywhere, right?
Yes.
So there would no doubt there'd be like boats out there, people living on boats, and people desperate for resources. So they would have run into all sorts of scary stuff. Yeah, that would have been a great opener to a new series, having them being captured by pirates and actually like forcibly taken somewhere else or something, or their ship kind of taken over and they have to kind of amalgamate with the new people. Yeah, that would be really, really interesting. Yeah. But I was just glad Darryl was on there doing something. And my hope for him was that they would be more and more accepted into this tribe. And the fact that they let him on the boat says a lot. And there's good people on that boat. So yeah. Yes. As for a new series, I guess I was always thinking I would have loved to see the tribe just have a little bit more of a like a slightly bigger budget, and a chance for to be seen by an even wider audience. I would have loved to see it treated as a primetime show. I know Ray Thompson had offers.
That's the thing too. Yeah. Like that's the thing too. Like I'm a huge fan of a show called Doctor Who. It was one of those shows very similar to Doctor Who aspect kind of thing. Like a show that deserved to stay longer running, more seasons. Like even if it got revamped in some big way, like with new cast members joining every single new season.
Yeah,
that would have been amazing to see. Like you guys, just like keeping the show alive, keeping the dream alive, as the show says.
That's the thing. It's like that concept deserved a much bigger treatment. But having said that, like what we were able to do with your on a smaller budget show and gain the level of kind of cult following worldwide that we did, is pretty amazing. And there's kind of a charm to it being made in the way that it was, like you would definitely have to maybe go for bigger names if you're pitching the show at a slightly higher level, but you would have lost some of the charm of this particular group of actors, the chemistry between them. And so I don't know how you would have made it work besides kind of like do a big reboot. But it's an interesting question, because it's like I want both things at once. You want it to have the budget it needs to really treat the it's a big idea. It's a big, amazing, like what if idea, but you don't want to lose the charm of the show, the way it was produced, and the fun we had as actors working on it that way.
I know Meryl's trying to like work her hardest off, trying to actually bring the show back to life in some big way. Which I praise Meryl so much for that. Like, she's actually currently in the circus at the moment in Australia.
I didn't even know that, but I've been following. I've been dipping in and out. I've been terrible with social media. I've just and I do apologize to fans in general that I've been kind of like somewhat deliberately kind of like hiding away a little bit. Life happens, and I've just like my taste for social media has like gone up and down. There's an unavoidable thing though, where the projects that I'm interested in, the things I want to work on, you have to use social media to promote them. And so my little resolution for myself is to get a little bit more comfortable with being online and sharing frequently and using the platforms and all that. So that's something I want to change. But yes, Meryl has done a phenomenal job of that.
Yes.
And she's done probably what we all should have done, in terms of taking her fame and her notoriety from the tribe and actually turning it into like a daily conversation with people, where she's like constantly connected to the fans, and that's wonderful. I hope that really leads to some bigger projects for her. Yeah.
We were immigrants, and we had to make a living. You took any job you could get.
The bodies may not be recovered until dawn.
There were 6 casualties, and my father was one of the 6.
I thought it was just a family story.
He was there 25 years old, just 25 years old.
Then we found the diary, the photos, everything.
He said to try to persuade Kilo that it was in his own interest to have Tess made.
I actually do recall my brother saying he was not looking forward to going back down in that hole.
She said, why don't you just call it sick? It's too dangerous, don't go.
If something happens, you have John. Those are the last words that I remember my dad saying. He was down below somewhere when the whole thing collapsed.
He was halfway down the hole, and they had reinforcement bar through his chest.
Our family was the only ones that could have an open coffin.
The guy told her to get a chair and sit down.
He kept saying, it was all my fault, it was all my fault. That was the last time that I saw him.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm the writer and director on Dresden 1957.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm the lead editor and a producer on the project. When it happened, the Dresden Cave-In was the worst workplace tragedy in Ontario's history, and the entire story was very nearly lost.
That's right. My late father plays a role in this story. His diary and documents reveal for the first time what happened behind the scenes.
But the men who died and their families are the heroes of this film. Their journey to Canada, the challenges they faced as immigrants starting from the bottom of the ladder, and the tragedy that changed everything for them.
We're making this film to save that story, to honor those who were lost, and to preserve a piece of our shared history.
We've taken the project as far as we can with our own time and money.
Now we're crowdfunding so we can hire a crew and finish filming this summer.
With your help, we can do it.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
I think he tried to suppress the whole thing.
She never really got over that accident.
I could have been part of that team. Who knows what would have happened to me?
People just wanted to get on with life and didn't want to hear bad things in the 50s. And the fact that it conveniently happened to an immigrant group that didn't speak particularly good English made it easy to do so.
I couldn't believe that something that terrible had happened here and that I hadn't known about it.